Okay, Blizzard. Tell me you hate Sorcerer without telling me you hate Sorcerer. So the Diablo 4 patch notes came out today. I've had a quick read through them, and I'll quickly give you the biggest changes in this particular patch. It's not looking good. Now, I'm going to focus specifically on Rogue and Sorcerer, which are the two classes that I currently play at the moment. I will probably play Druid during the seasons based on how badly Sorcerer has been nerfed in this particular patch. And I'll quickly outline some of the biggest changes which I know in terms of things that I've seen. So let's quickly go through it. There's 6 unique items. They're like all okay. You can quickly read about them in your own time. The 2 that I do want to point out is Rogue and Sorcerer. You got the unique bow. On Rogue, penetrating shot has 30 to 80% chance to fire an arrow that bounces off walls and scenery. Hitting the enemies from behind with penetrating shot will make them vulnerable for 3 seconds. Penetrating shot is actually already a pretty strong build, so this will just take it to the next level. And the fact that it's on a bow makes it so that your attack speed is naturally higher than a crossbow. Also, based on these changes, crossbows are going to be pretty bad, and so bow's going to be pretty good moving forward. We'll have to see what changes in the season, but I think this item is okay in terms of taking penetrating shot to another level. This unique, however, the Oculus, gain the effect of teleport enchantment for free. So the teleport enchantment basically turns your evade into teleport. And it puts it on a 17-second cooldown. Now it says when you evade using teleport enchantment, you're taken to a random location. This is absolutely terrible. This is such a bad item. It's, yeah, like why would you want to evade into a random location? That makes no sense. So I don't know what they were thinking in terms of creating an item like this. I do know that in like old Diablo, there was an item similar to this, but it actually wasn't this bad. Like whenever you evade, you just go to a different location. So this is okay, we'll just move on. We've got some general items here. That's close items. Going down to Rogue and Sorcerer. This one, third caster punctures and poison build with 100% of normal potency. I mean, okay, I don't know how good that's going to be in terms of Rogue. Then we have Sorcerer. After spending 200 to 100 mana, your next Firewall is cast for free and will destroy incoming missiles. Firewall is an okay build. Burning has to be buffed a lot in the current way that Sorcerer are operating at the moment, because burning builds are pretty bad at the moment. I guess this will help. And also in higher nightmare dungeons, this will actually help with damage from distance. So this will completely ignore, you can kind of stand in your firewalls and basically just tank close enemies. So you can kind of stack damage reduction from close enemies instead. But you'll see later on that damage to close enemies, the damage reduction in this game is just completely atrocious now. So I don't know what's going to happen. Going through this. So this one here, the Feat of Strength, Final Slayer of the First Mother, now requires you to slay the level 100 boss solo. So this means that you can't pay for like solo, like boss kills and stuff. You have to do this by yourself in order for this to work. Co-op play, dungeons. We've got some fixes related to dungeons. Quickly going through. Okay, so some of these, this is where a lot of the big changes will start to occur. Now, in terms of gameplay, they were saying that the Hammer of the Ancients damage, like a lot of the strong damage for Hammer of the Ancients was actually a bug. So they have quote-unquote fixed it, and now Hammer of the Ancients will not do as much damage as we want it to do. Yeah, they said, so they basically said, we recognize this adjustment is a significant decrease to the Hammer of the Ancients Barbarian build, but we do not want its strength to be reliant on an underlying bug. Okay, so hopefully later down the patch they will compensate for this, but I don't think that's the case. All right, I don't play druids at the moment, so I'm going to skip this, but I will leave a link in the description down below to the patch notes so you can check it out in your own time. Necromancer, I don't play Necromancer. Rogue, here's some extra bug fixes that they added. This one here fixed an issue where Rapid Fire had an extra arrow VFX that behaved erratically. So people were saying that when you used Rapid Fire, especially with combo points, it would with combo points it shot 8 arrows, but they were saying that an extra arrow would come out. We can see that this is actually a bug. Next is Sorcerer. Okay, so the big one on Sorcerer is this right here. Fixed an issue where Aspect of Control was applying its damage bonus 3 times for staggered bosses. This was Aspect of Control is the one where if a target is frozen, stunned, or immobilized, the aspect would gain benefits from all 3. But now this quote-unquote bug has been fixed, and so Sorcerer's damage at higher Nightmare dungeons will be completely bad. So that's really good. Then we have fixed an issue where Gravitational Aspect was appearing weaker on two-handed swords. Okay, great. So here, fixed an issue where Incinerate would immediately cost 30 mana when cast in addition to consistent channeling mana costs. Incinerate now properly only costs mana as it's being channeled. This is a good fix, although no one uses Incinerate at all, especially at higher Nightmare dungeons. The other one here is Firebolt enchantment did not contribute the combustion key passive. That's a good fix moving forward to start in terms of burning builds being a thing. This is another good thing for burning builds, but again, no one really uses burning build right now. So we'll have to see how it works in terms of how the seasons start and what kind of builds Sorcerer will have. But this being nerfed is completely tragic. So I don't know what Sorcerers are going to do in terms of damage moving forward, but we'll have to see the actual changes later on. So this one here fixed an issue where monsters with cold, bleeding, burning, or corruption affix would freeze players in one hit in Nightmare dungeons with cold enchanted affix. So this is pretty bad because crowd control with these kind of mobs would be absolutely crushing at higher Nightmare tiers. Same with other ones here. Fixed an issue where cold enchanted monsters froze players more often than intended in higher world tiers. So it's good that they've addressed this, but cold enchanted is still, I think, going to be a bit of a problem in terms of how crowd control is not balanced at the moment in the game. Sometimes you can get chain CC'd, and that's a huge problem, which I don't think is fair to the player, because you're just getting chain CC'd and then you die. Hopefully they do something about CC in this game. We'll move on to okay, there's some extra stuff here. Fixed an issue where aspect power would also increase when upgrading an item at the blacksmith. So apparently that was a bug. So increasing the aspect power doesn't happen when you upgrade an item, which is a shame. This one here, level requirement of sacred items will now cap at level 60. So there would be cases where you have like a sacred item or an ancestral item and you can't gift it to your alternate characters to wear because your character's like level 90. Now you can actually gift it to your other characters because these are capped at level 80. Fixed an issue where items of higher power than intended were dropping from rare monsters. Okay. So this one here fixed an issue where monsters with suppressor affix would be immune to damage from abilities that started initially outside the immunity circle, which is that when you started casting Whirlwind, it would actually like do no damage for some reason. So that's a good fix there. Oh, this one here fixed an issue where treasure goblins would behave erratically if engaged from a long distance. So there are cases where like I was riding in with my horse and for some reason I would see a treasure goblin, and so I would run my horse straight to where the treasure goblin is, but then when I got there the treasure goblin disappeared. So I think this shouldn't happen anymore. That's a bit weird. Okay, scrolling down, these are more related to like gameplay and events and things like this. Let's go down a bit further. Okay, so here they've now added Altars of Lilith unlocks are now account-wide. Map Discovery is now account-wide. So essentially before the 20th, when this new season comes out, you want to log in to your account, and basically that will unlock the map and Altars of Lilith for the new season. Whispers will no longer reward sigil dust. That's not good, because then you can't get more nightmare sigils straight away. Okay, I don't know why they've done that. Overall loot quality has been significantly improved for silent chests. Channel time to leave the dungeon has been increased from 3 to 5 seconds. I don't know why they did that. They've increased the renowned values from 20 to 30, which is good. That will make it so that renown will be easier to get. Dungeon renown rewards from 30 to 40 as well. So for the new season, they're going to make it so that getting the renown is slightly easier. I mean, it shouldn't take as long. World tier, they've increased the amount of gold and loot drops from monsters. This part here, they've changed the level scaling in terms of out in the open world. So they said here, World Tier 3 example, if the player's level is below 55, the monster's level will be 55. If the player's from level 56 to 60, the monster level is 55. So if you're at level 60, the monster level is at 55. We want to give players a better sense of their power progression and mastery over the world whilst still challenging themselves with structured endgame activities. This change is weird because it doesn't change anything. Like, why would you want to fight lower level monsters out in the open world? It just doesn't make any sense. Because it's like, it's creating like a false sense of power. It doesn't actually make you more powerful. You're just versing lower level monsters. If the player's level is 61, then the monster's level will be 56. And so it'll be -5 until the world tier's max level of 70 if you're on world tier 3. So basically, the monster's level will just be 5 levels less than you once you're at level 60. Okay, and then if you're at world tier 4, it's similar type of thing here as well. So where the monster level is 5 years below if you're at level 80. Okay, I don't know why they did that. Reward experience for completed Tree of Whispers has been significantly increased. Okay, so there's more experience from doing Tree of Whispers. We've adjusted the bonus experience rewards for killing monsters that are higher level than the player. Pre-season malignant bonuses and then post-season malignant bonuses. Alright, so this part is also significant. They've also made power leveling for other characters pretty much impossible now. So typically you could bring in a level 1 player into a level 100 party and then kill monsters, and that will give the level 100 experience to the level 1 player. That is no longer the case now because it's capped at 10. So you essentially can't power level your friends. So that's brilliant. Helltide is now 1 level higher, as opposed to 2, it's 3, and they've made it harder for you to get and open the chests as well. The mystery chests from 250 up from 175. Brilliant. Yep, cool. Balance updates. So this is the big change. Now, I'm actually only going to look at Rogue and Sorcerer. I don't play the other classes again, so I'm just going to purely look at this from Rogue. So Rapid Fire is better, Caltrops is better, Cold Imbue is better, Smoke Grenade buff, Dash buff, Concealment buff. Okay, so this is good. Like it's a lot of good buffs. Then we've got Victimize. So 5% buff to Victimize, Lucky Chance. Siphoning Strikes, which was your lifesteal on Rogue, is now a lucky hit. This is a nerf. This is actually a huge nerf. So basically, your lifesteal will be much harder to do. This is a buff to damage reduction. We have... This is another slight buff to healing when you're stealth. Okay, and then combat glyph. All right, so this is the big thing that they were going to do. All the glyphs across the board for crit strike damage now affect all damage as opposed to just your core skills. So that's just the change that they said they were going to do anyway. Eldritch Bounty legendary node duration increased from 6 to 9 seconds. So Eldritch Bounty was when you attack with an imbued skill, you gain 20% resistance and 20% increased damage for that imbuement element for 9 seconds. Okay. So this lasts longer, basically. Alright, legendary aspects. We've got buffs across the board. I see increased. Okay, so Rogue got some buffs, basically. That's pretty good to hear, except the nerf to your lifesteal. These are, again, these are all really small changes, and I'm actually surprised that Rogue got big buffs across the board, but it must be that, you know, I think Rogue is one of the most satisfying classes to play right now, simply because of how the class feels and the power across the board. So that's good to see that Rogue is actually doing quite well. Let's have a look at Sorcerer. Charge bolts. No one uses charge bolts. So yeah, again, so they're trying to push for charge bolts. They're trying to push for incinerate, but 5% is just such a small damage reduction for it to be usable. Ice blades is basically cast faster. Firebolt initial damage increased from 10 to 18%. This is quite a big damage buff, so we'll have to see if firebolts and burning builds actually become more of a thing in terms of the new patch. Wizard's Firewall, mana regen increased. We've got Blizzard core skill damage, mana cost reduction, so that's a buff there. We've got the cooldown reduction of Deep Freeze as well, which is the ultimate by 100%, which is okay. Elemental Dominance, this is a... So Elemental Dominance increases your core skill damage when you cast your core skills above 50 mana. So they've actually increased the damage. Oh, so they've actually made it affect mastery skills as well as core skills. So that's a nice change to have. Especially if you're doing like firewall builds now, you can actually take this particular passive. Potent warding duration increased from 3 to 9 seconds. Increases resistance to all elements when casting a non-basic skill. And then you get half of that bonus to the skill's elements for a few seconds. This doesn't actually mean anything because resistances are not that great in D4 at the moment. Protection barrier. Duration increased by 1 second. Okay. Align the elements, damage reduction increased per second from 1, 2 to 3 to 3, 6, and 9. So this is actually a much more takeable skill now. This is one of the best passives on Sorcerer at the moment, so it's actually quite worth it to put 9 points into it, especially at higher Nightmare tiers. Mana Shield damage reduction increased from 5 to 15 to 7 to 21. Again, this is another good passive to have for damage reduction later in the game. This damage reduction here from 10 to 30 for Devouring Blaze to 7 to 21. This is a huge nerf to sorcerers. Same with this one here. The crit strike damage to immobilized reduced from 75% all the way down to 30. So this is a huge nerf to the build. We got mana regen increased. Okay, but again, like the whole reason why you were speccing into fire was because of this, but yeah, okay, so this is not great for sorcerer damage. So we've got the aspect of control bug, quote unquote bug, being fixed, and then we now have Devouring Blaze with a huge nerf. Enchantments, there's some slight buffs to some skills that no one used. Yeah, I guess Hydra is a little bit better now if you're doing some sort of conjuration build. Then we've got some legendary aspects where the damage got changed. This one here, the glacial aspect ice spikes, was used for killing Uber Lilith, but now the Uber Lilith damage has been greatly affected by the fact that aspect of control has been completely shattered. So you can't do a huge damage combo anymore. Aspect of Biting Cold, chance to apply vulnerable to frozen enemies. This didn't even matter. This one increases your ice deep freeze ultimate, so to get life and stuff. Again, this didn't really matter either. I don't think anyone was really using this. This is actually good. So aspect of splintering energy, chance to spawn an additional lightning spear, increased from 11 to 20 to 41 to 50. That's a big change to lightning sorcerer. Same with this one as well. Chance for an additional chain lightning increased from 25 to 35 to 30 to 40. So some decent changes to lightning sorcerers. And then we've got some items that like no one was using anyway, but there's some additional buffs there. Now the huge thing for sorcerer right now is this part right here. Now the huge thing in D4 right now is this. This is the whole part of the patch, which is gonna completely change the way everyone plays the game. So first is aspect of disobedience. This is the one that gives you damage reduction in the form of extra armor. So it's gone from 25 to 50% in terms of the aspect, now to 15 to 30%. So this is a huge nerf to this particular legendary aspect. It's going to be much harder to push Nightmare tiers with such a huge reduction in damage reduction in terms of armor. And then we've got this aspect here as well. This aspect was being used after you stunned an enemy. If you put this onto a two-handed weapon, you would get double the effect, like 80%. Now that's gone down to 20%, so if you double it, it's only 40%. Again, that's like a 20 to 40% damage reduction in terms of how much this aspect can put out. Here, I mean, you've got the ancestral drop rates in Nightmare Dungeons increased from 5 to 10%. Removed a 20% chance to drop an extra equipment item from elites outside a Nightmare Dungeon and Hell Tides, increased chance to drop an extra item from elites in Nightmare Dungeons and Hell Tides by 10%. Nightmare Dungeons have now a chance to drop a second legendary item upon completion. These changes are good, it just gives more items, but the main problem with this now is not enough stash space, because then you have to sell more often for items that you don't really care about. Otherwise, the alternative is just not to pick up anything, but that was also not feasible either, because you need gold in the game anyway. This one here, monster HP scaling increased from 85% to 100%, bonus per player in the party. They made Greed Shrine a little bit better, and world bosses now drop potions more often. There's also no longer a limit on how many materials you can refine into higher materials at once. This part here, item affixes. Many affixes are too efficient and outshining alternatives. We are looking to refine the outliers, improve the number of meaningful choices on competitive slots, and increase the overall flexibility of items. We know these changes will reduce the total amount of possible power a character can possess, so we're monitoring these changes affect players' ability to conquer expected milestones throughout the season. So first, they're nerfing items because they're going to give us a lot more stats that we don't want in our gear. So they're going to give us control impaired duration reduction, which will appear on pants across the board. No one really cares about this. They're giving us barrier generation, which appears for all classes. So now barbarians and necromancers will start getting barrier generation on their gear, which is completely useless. Then you have lucky hit chance when you have a barrier, which again will appear on all gear. Reduced by 12% when on helm and 20% when on amulet or offhand. Okay, I don't know why they're putting these into the game. It's like completely useless and no one's going to use them. Mastery skill damage to appear on sorcerer weapons. This is okay, and it scales identically with core skill damage. This is actually not too bad because mastery skills are one of those things which you can use it as a separate build. Core stat bonuses on weapons have been overperforming, so we're basically nerfing this. So it's gone from 50% stronger when on weapons to 25%, so they've nerfed this. Cooldown reduction affixes often felt mandatory due to their raw power. We imagine cooldown reduction will remain a highly desirable stat, but the penalty for not prying this won't be as harsh. So they're punishing us for trying to find cooldown reduction on gear, which is brilliant. Crit strike and vulnerable damage often viewed as a hard requirement for the build success in Diablo 4. We believe this is a step towards allowing more builds to flourish and will continue to make changes in support of this goal. So they're nerfing critical strike damage across the board and vulnerable damage by 40%, which is huge. So essentially you're just going to be doing less damage with your gear. That's great. Again, reduced by 50% for crit strike damage and vulnerable damage. Yeah, cool. Then we have damage to crowd control elites, enemies reduced by 30% and damage to frozen increased by 20%. Why are they doing this? We've seen that skillful players are frequently slaughtering monsters many levels above their own. We want to support this, but the situation is beyond what we believe is correct for the long-term health of the game. To chase this goal, we're shifting power to many offensive affixes from defensive affixes. We know this will make our end-game content more deadly, particularly those chasing our pinnacle boss. An encounter not meant for the faint of heart. Overcoming the pinnacle boss will take every amount of grit you can muster. Okay, so basically they're buffing all damage. Every single stat point of damage you can think of, they're buffing. And this part here, they've reduced armor damage reduction in every possible way. Total armor reduced by 30%. Total armor in werebear form and werewolf form reduced by 25%. This by 20%. Damage reduction by 25%. This is terrible. So basically, Blizzard wants us to deal more damage and die faster. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below in terms of these changes. Have a day. Bye for now.